My wife just smiled at the man pointing a gun at her face. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong with this picture. Normal people don't smile when threatened with death. They panic, they scream, they run. But Tracy stood there like she was deciding whether this guy was worth her time or just another Tuesday morning inconvenience. You know what I mean? The so-called security guard was shaking so bad I honestly thought he'd squeeze off a round by accident. But Tracy just looked calm, almost bored, like she was mentally timing how long it'd take to disarm him if she had to. And in that instant, right there in the street, I realized the peaceful suburban life I thought we'd found. Yeah, I'd been dead wrong. Let me back up a sec. 3 weeks earlier, we'd rolled into Westfield Gardens thinking we'd finally landed somewhere normal. Lawns trimmed to perfection, white picket fences everywhere, the full American dream, at least on the surface. Tracy needed quiet after her years overseas, and I just wanted a neighborhood where the worst argument would be about garbage cans or noisy dogs. Turns out, paradise isn't always what it seems. If I'd paid attention, the first red flag would have been the last owners practically flinging us the keys, like they couldn't get out fast enough. But Tracy was finally sleeping through the night, so I figured whatever baggage the house had, we could handle it. What I didn't see was the war we were about to walk into, one my wife apparently saw coming before I did. Now, Tracy's always had a way of getting settled. You know, reorganizing the garage, planting tomatoes with military precision, mapping out our routines. I thought she was just nesting. Nope, she was gathering intel. That Tuesday morning, I was in my home office, working on a dull IT project, when I heard yelling outside. At first I figured, what, a car crash? Maybe a lost delivery truck? I looked out, and my blood ran cold. There was Tracy, standing absolutely still, with some guy in a tactical vest waving a gun right in her face. He looked like a movie extra who'd bought his gear online. Patches everywhere, fake cop bravado, but not a clue what he was doing. "You're under citizen's arrest for trespassing on HOA property," he bellowed, voice already cracking. Tracy just stood there, hands half raised, eyes flat and unblinking. "Sir," she said, and I swear, her voice could have frozen a volcano. "Put the weapon down. Last chance to do this peacefully." If you've ever heard someone issue a real threat in total calm, you know what I mean. But the guy, Mike, I'd find out later, just tightened his grip. Next thing I know, Tracy moves. I can barely describe it. One blink, she's standing still. Next blink, she's got Mike's arm twisted and he's face down on the asphalt, gun gone. It happened so fast, my brain couldn't even process it. I always thought that stuff only happened in movies, but here's my wife, kneeling on some wannabe cop's back, not even breathing hard. That's when the real boss showed up. Barbara Garcia, HOA president, glided out of the clubhouse like she'd been waiting for this moment. Hair perfect, power suit on, smile sharp enough to cut glass. But when she saw Tracy, her face went pale and she muttered, "That's Tracy Rogers," not a question, more like a warning. Then, to Tracy, she says, "Hello, Colonel Garcia." Still filing false charges. That's when it hit me. These two had history. And whatever happened overseas, it was about to spill into our block. Police showed up within minutes. Too fast, if you ask me. The officer took one look, asked Tracy if she was military, nodded like that explained everything, and told Mike he was lucky to be walking. But Barbara? She wasted no time. "Officer," she called, all fake concern. "I worry about someone with clear PTSD and combat training living here. Was that level of violence really necessary?" She said it just loud enough for everyone to hear, planting that little seed. Tracy answered her flat, "Ma'am, your guard pointed a loaded weapon at an unarmed civilian." I acted with restraint. Neighbors drifted back to their houses, and Barbara whipped out her phone, thumbs flying, setting the next move, no doubt. That night, Tracy sat me down, folder in hand, and let me in on the truth I hadn't wanted to know. "Frank," she said, "Barbara Garcia isn't just an HOA president. She's ex-JAG, the same prosecutor who tried to destroy my unit overseas with fake charges." Tracy told me how Barbara needed a high-profile conviction to boost her career, and when the evidence didn't fit, she just made it up. Coached witnesses, doctored reports, you name it. The case collapsed, but the fallout wrecked half the unit. Barbara lost her job, blamed Tracy, and apparently spent years quietly plotting her revenge. So, What do you do when the person running your neighborhood has spent years setting up a chessboard just to take you down? Barbara had used her legal expertise to eliminate all other housing options. This was the only place we could afford, and now she had everything she needed for her campaign. That week, the mail started coming. Violation notices, demands for psychological evaluations, threats of restraining orders, all with Barbara's signature at the bottom. The same legal tricks she'd pulled in the army, now dressed up as community safety. Meanwhile, she started working the neighbors, whispering about PTSD and veteran aggression, making Tracy out to be some ticking time bomb. Soon, people started crossing the street when they saw us coming. But Tracy? She went into full military mode. Every notice, every conversation, every shady HOA move, documented, photographed, timestamped. Barbara thinks she's dealing with someone broken. Tracy told me, but she has no idea. You could feel the tension ratcheting up with every passing day. Barbara would stage concerned neighbor meetings, always about veteran mental health, always just a little too close to home. And she was careful, never outright saying Tracy was dangerous, just raising questions. The first real twist came at the emergency court hearing, Barbara's checkmate. She filed for a restraining order, claiming Tracy's military background made her a danger to the community. Witnesses lined up, Helen Clark, Barbara's right hand, others we barely knew, each swearing Tracy had been aggressive. I'll admit, for a minute, I thought we were done. The judge listened to Barbara's well-practiced speech, all legalese and crocodile tears. But then, the door swung open and in strode David Parker, press badge, calm voice, investigative reporter. Your Honor, I've been documenting HOA fraud. Mrs. Garcia recruited me as security after I applied with fake credentials. The room froze. David had receipts, audio of Barbara coaching witnesses, doctored incident timelines, proof that military families had been targeted and pushed out for years. Suddenly, Barbara's whole narrative cracked wide open. Barbara tried to spin it as a conspiracy, but she was unraveling. The judge, stone-faced, asked for every scrap of evidence. My own research, public records, housing sales, patterns of harassment, helped fill in the rest. The judge tossed out the restraining order, warned Barbara about sanctions, and her carefully crafted persona started to crumble. Mike Thompson, the fake security guy, looked like he'd just been hit by a bus, realizing he'd been a pawn in someone else's game. Within a week, Barbara switched tactics, financial warfare. Our HOA fees doubled overnight. Bogus security assessments appeared, always targeted at military families. When I called to question it, Helen Clark replied, "Special circumstances require special oversight." But digging into property records, I found Barbara had a shell company buying up homes from harassed families, then flipping them for a profit. 6 houses, all for sales, all bought by Westfield Property Management, her company. Tracy played it cool. She quietly bought up Barbara's outstanding debts to contractors, 47 grand worth. At the grocery store, Barbara cornered Tracy, smug and threatening, promising to bleed us dry in court. Tracy just smiled, explained that she now owned Barbara's debt and could trigger investigations into fraudulent tax filings and unpaid contractors. Barbara's face turned the color of old printer paper. She paid up in a week, desperate to avoid legal heat. But I could tell she was cornered, not defeated. Barbara's next move? Social media war. She started a safety group, online, posting selectively edited videos to make Tracy look like a threat, clips of her jogging cut with ominous music, normal conversations twisted into accusations. The stuff was professional grade, and it started spreading beyond our block, with strangers chiming in about dangerous veterans. Tracy didn't play defense. She went on offense, organizing neighborhood BBQs, starting a safety class for kids, building genuine goodwill. The tide started turning. People came to see Tracy as a force for good, not the monster Barbara painted her to be. But Barbara pushed too far, trying to create a deep fake of Tracy threatening children. Mike, finally realizing he'd been manipulated, flipped. He went to David Parker, and together they exposed Barbara's digital fakes. The police launched an investigation. For the first time, Barbara's lies were now criminal. Mike's testimony, plus David's evidence, unraveled her entire operation. You'd think that'd be the end, right? Nope. Barbara lawyered up and held a press conference, spinning herself as a victim of military conspiracies, with timelines, documents, and a fancy attorney throwing around words like whistleblower and civil rights. Suddenly, our quiet neighborhood feud was national news. Some people started to doubt Tracy again. But Tracy, with David's help, countered with her own press briefing, calm, factual, with piles of evidence and testimony from real witnesses. Then, the mic drop. Tracy revealed she'd been working with federal investigators. Barbara wasn't just harassing us. She was running a fraud ring across several states, using HOA positions to target veterans and flip properties. The fallout was massive. Barbara's attorney quit when he saw the federal case coming. Helen Clark flipped, handing over every detail of Barbara's operation. Barbara was charged with document fraud, conspiracy, even national security violations. She'd built a whole criminal empire out of her personal vendetta, and now it was crashing down. The community was shocked. People apologized to Tracy, thanked her for helping root out the corruption. The HOA board resigned in disgrace, and a new one was elected, focused on community, not control. Tracy's safety classes became a permanent fixture. Property values rebounded. People started trusting each other again. Tracy got a formal commendation from the Pentagon for her role in exposing the scheme. Didn't want it, but deserved it. David's reporting won awards and changed how HOAs are regulated across the state. Barbara, 12 years in federal prison, law license gone, assets seized, and a public reputation that'll never recover. Helen got community service for helping bring her down. Mike, once the hapless security guy, became a voice for real neighborhood safety, warning people how easy it is to be swept up by someone with an agenda. Looking back, it's wild how close we came to losing everything. Reputation, home, peace, just because one person couldn't let go of a grudge. Tracy, the person who only wanted to plant tomatoes and live quietly, wound up protecting an entire community and changing laws. Sometimes the biggest wins don't come from fighting. They come from refusing to break, even when it'd be easier to just give up. So, here's my question for you. Have you ever seen a feud get so out of hand it changed an entire community? Do you think justice was really served? Or is there always another Barbara waiting in the wings? Drop your story or your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear the wildest twist you've seen. And if you made it this far, hit like, follow, and stick around, because in this neighborhood, you never know what's coming next.